Russet mold can be deadly. If Roga gets too close, there's a good chance that the mold will release spores. So I'm going to give you a vote here. Are you going to stop, Roga? Okay, we currently have 2 options which are more or less the same. So with that, you attempt to try and stop Roga from licking this mold. I'm going to need an initiative check from you just to see how quickly you react. This is essentially just adding our dexterity modifier to see if you're fast enough to stop it from happening. Okay, so a total of dirty 20 again. You very quickly react to this circumstance, lunging forward and grabbing Roga by the back of the shell on both sides as it faces you on their back. With all of your strength, you pull Roga back, and Roga is surprised, alarmed, and confused. You rapidly explain what would happen in as simple terms as you can, and it seems as though Roga gets the drift, though doesn't really understand the specifics. Lick, mold, die. Pretty much, yeah. That's more or less what it comes down to in the end. With your survival check prior, knowing this now, what this mold is, there's one thing that you realize which may affect one of your decisions that you decided to take. When an individual is infected or infested with russet mold sickness, they are poisoned, and if this individual dies from the poison, they will themselves give birth to a Veggie-pygmy from their corpse. So you are now aware of an extra risk involved in leaving Hunter alone in the house. So you are aware that if Hunter does die while you're gone, a Veggie-pygmy will be born from their corpse, and that may as well continue to spread the sickness further. The sickness has already been active, for best you could tell, probably around 10 hours. So you don't know how much longer they may have left. You are aware that if you amputate above the infection, it will probably stop the spread of the sickness. So consolidating the votes then, everybody choosing instead to move back to the cabin briefly with the new information gained before you set out. So you move back to the cabin, and inside, Hunter is surprised to see you again so soon. You relay this information. You inform Hunter that if they die before you return, that they will turn into one of the creatures that stole away Hugo. And at this rate, Hunter will be lucky if they get another day or two, by which point they may have already deteriorated to the point of suffering longer-term damage. Trenk discusses amputation with Hunter, saying that he does have the expertise required to do a fairly rudimentary surgery, but I am going to need a persuasion check from you, chap. So a persuasion check to see how well Hunter takes this news and how well they may handle the situation as it takes place. 19! Okay, so it is -2, but it's big. So with a total of 17, you sit down with Hunter for a time, and between you, you discuss the severity of the situation and the urgency of it. Hunter attempts to fight you down a couple of times about it, insisting that they've been through worse, and you make it absolutely clear that they have not. And this is a very serious problem that they need to confront now before it gets any worse. Hunter agrees, and again, I'm not going to go into the gritty details for people it might make uncomfortable, but we'll do a fade to black as a fairly laborious surgery takes place. Trenk not having all of the necessary tools, having to improvise at several stages as you are enlisted as an assistant. The surgery is a success. Before long, the room reeks of blood, sweat, and booze, as fairly strong alcohol is used to both sterilize as a form of fairly basic anesthesia. So the surgery is a success. It takes about 3 hours, but before long, you lay Hunter down back in their bed. Hunter seems to find some degree of rest. Trenk seems fairly confident that they will make a reasonably good recovery, but stresses that you should not take too long before checking in again if you decide to head out soon. One thing that you remember before setting out is that veggie-pygmies are nocturnal creatures. So at this point, you need to consider whether or not you are going to wait here with Hunter and wait for night to set out, or set out more urgently during the day. If you set out during the day, you are aware that you are less likely to find these creatures. You're less likely to find active individuals moving around in the forest, and therefore find out where they might have been holding Hugo. But it will also potentially be less dangerous to you to go during the day. So this is more or less a matter of personal risk for a greater degree of success, or moving out urgently for more safety, but a harder mission ahead of you. So I'm gonna open the vote. Okay. Seems pretty unanimous. So deciding to wait for nighttime to fall. You are waiting with Hunter for about 8 hours, as it was currently midday, before the sun starts to go down. During this time, there are moments where Hunter wakes, kind of murmuring gibberish as the fever begins to fade. And before long, you can very clearly see that Hunter is sleeping, all things considered, fairly soundly, and seems to be indicating all signs of a successful recovery. At least to the point where you feel confident that you can leave them and venture out into the night without worrying about their safety. Trenk suggests that you all head out, but make sure to check that the house itself is secure, so that if any creatures come by while you are gone, they will not be able to enter easily. So you exit out of the hut and move towards the rear fence of the building, having secured the locks around the house itself, taking a key with you for the front door, and before long you find yourself entering the forest itself. This forest, you very quickly find, is incredibly dense. The canopy blocks out most of the moonlight as it cascades through the small gaps above, creating these beams, these streaks of silvery illumination. They occasionally catch your forms as you move through the forest. You are here as you move out towards the north. About 5 minutes out, you notice the North Watch Tower, which you are very aware, as far as you've been told, is currently uninhabited, and you venture out into the dark forests. Unsure of exactly what you'll find, but having some indication all the same of what you are likely to encounter if your mission is successful. Are you opting to move quietly, or are you going to try and attract attention to yourselves by traveling as usual? All right, thank you everybody for your votes. So deciding to move quietly, I'm going to need a stealth check from you, chat, and I'm going to roll for the rest of the group as you travel. Gene, please hit us with the exclamation mark roll. Okay, so you got a 2 plus 9, which brings us to a total of 11, which is not all that bad. So with the big modifier, you proceed out into the night. You feel, as a group, that you're traveling fairly quietly. There are a few moments where you worry if you've lost Alden somewhere behind you, maybe distracted or caught up in something, but you see that Alden is actually very closely tailing you, occasionally moving towards your blind spots, and doesn't take long each time that you worry to find Alden once again, who is constantly in this state of expectation, always looking up to you, but nonetheless seems to quite nimbly navigate the undergrowth of the forest. Roga also seems to be doing fairly well, very clearly more at home in the forest than within the small corridors of these puny human buildings. And also Trenk seems to be having a bit of a struggle. You yourself are feeling a little distracted, not on your best form, but nonetheless feel as though you're traveling fairly quietly yourself. Trenk is he's struggling, dude. Trenk is clanking, he is clamoring up, under, over various things, and there are a couple of moments where you all have to turn around and collectively shush him, and he seems very embarrassed. About 15 minutes or so out of the Hunter's Lodge, you are now confidently moving northward, following the tracks as best as you can. Occasionally, you find a trap or something left behind, some tool, occasionally an axe, that also bears the markings of this russet mold this rust-looking infestation, indicating that you are traveling in the right direction still. Traveling through under the cover of night, fully aware that this not only affords increased cover to yourself, but also to anybody who may be lurking in the shadows. It's not long before you hear some kind of rustling about 30 to 40 foot away from you. It's quiet, it's subtle, but you hear this strange murmuring that indicates that a creature moving around atop a tree somewhere nearby is very clearly not a simple bird or other creature that would ordinarily reside there. So from left, right, and down, we have Trenk in the middle. We have Roga to the right. Then we have Villandria, that's your character, chat, and Owlden off to your flank as well. So you hear that there is a creature in this area about 30 foot away from you, best you can guess. I'm going to need a perception check from chat. Essentially, this is going to help us determine what you figure out about whatever is beyond your sight at this point in time before you approach, and if approaching is in fact necessary. It might also tell you if these creatures themselves are aware of your presence. Papa Crimes, please help us out with a big perception check. A 3. Okay, so 3 plus 7, a total of 10. You listen out, and you don't seem to be able to notice any other particular sounds or other indications of exactly where this creature is. You can tell at the very least from this that these creatures are very clearly hiding. You're not sure if they know that you're here, but they may be anticipating something or someone at some point in time over the course of the night. So there is something lying in wait. Let's open a poll. Okay, so deciding to circle, I'm gonna ask you one more poll, and this is if you're gonna go alone, or if you're gonna go with your group together. Okay, so choosing to travel alone, and I need a stealth check from you, chat. At times, when circumstances change, you may need to do another roll. So because you are now at a space where you are aware of something, it may or may not be aware of you, it's an opportunity to change the circumstances in a meaningful way. Franck, hit us with that roll. 8. Okay, so 8 plus 9, bringing it to 17. You break off from your group, attempting to move around through the undergrowth and under the guise of darkness. It doesn't take long before you realize there is a creature up in the tree above you, currently looking vaguely in the direction of your group, but does not seem to have noticed your approach around on the flank. You are greeted with the sight of one of these Veggie-pygmies that is currently crouched over, attempting to disguise itself between several leaves on one of the larger branches that reach out from the top of this tree itself. It seems to be armed with a sling that is currently held taut with some kind of projectile, probably some kind of rock, looking for any signs of movement. Okay, so opting for an ambush, you look up, you quietly draw an arrow from your bow, and you let it loose. I'm gonna need an attack roll from you, chat. Franck, again, hit us with the roll, my friend. 11 plus 8. So the total of 19. Whoa, quick maths. You strike true as your arrow silently streaks through the air, impacting into the side of this Veggie-pygmy's head, and you watch as it sways without even a sound, begins to drop from the tree. I'm gonna give you the opportunity to attempt to catch this creature as it is about to fall on a fairly sizable bush, which will alert enemies. You know that if this creature hits the ground, it is going to make a lot of sound. Okay, so choosing to try and catch the creature, I'm going to need an athletics check from you, chat, to see if you are strong enough to soften the blow in this moment. Sokai, hit us with the roll, please. Okay, so with a 14 plus 2 from your strength modifier, you nimbly dash from one side of the tree to the other, just in time to catch this swaying Veggie-pygmy before it hits the ground, softening the blow and reducing its momentum, and then lowering it down onto the forest floor. You are confident, as you listen out, that you have not alerted any other creature that may be in the area. You can continue to move through the forest and find the other creatures that may or may not be there, or you can regroup, or you can do something entirely different. Again, I'm only offering suggestions so that maybe people aren't feeling confident and they don't really know what they would do. I'm giving you those options just so you have something in mind. You don't have to do them. Okay, so deciding to move back through the forest with your previous stealth check, we will keep that as you very briskly and nimbly navigate your way back to your group and inform them of what you saw. You all decide, with the regroup, to travel together once again. At the very least, you've taken out one scout. So regrouped, you all begin to walk once more forward into the forest. We'll keep your previous stealth check, but I'm going to re-roll it for the other people. Trink's still not doing great. Poor guy. Rogue is feeling confident. Owl then is also doing very well. So as a group, you continue to move fairly quietly through the area, at which point you hear the rustling of some kind of creature nearby. You can continue to keep moving, or you can investigate the source of this sound. So opening the vote. Okay, so choosing to investigate the source, you move slightly forward, and you can see, although this creature doesn't seem to have immediately noticed you move closer, there's very clearly a leg sticking out from a bush of one of these creatures that you had assumed might show up eventually, a creature called a thorny. These bestial, almost frog-like creatures that resemble some kind of strange fungal hybrid between a canine and an amphibian. So you are about 8 foot away from it, and it doesn't seem to have heard your approach. What do you want to do? Okay, we're currently 3 and 3. I'm going to do a first to 5 here. So first to 5 between attack and offer sandwich, or if you guys all of a sudden decide to reform and come up with something else entirely, that's also an option. Okay, so taking us to 6, that easily closes that out. You decide to attack this creature, aware of its origins and the harm that it is causing at least one of the villagers. You ready your bow to attack. I'm going to need an attack roll from you, chat. This will be with advantage because the creature does not know you're here. So the first roll, Gene, let's see what you get. 19, pretty good. Second roll, just in case, we get like a natural 20 or something. Go Turk. All right, give us the second roll. See if you beat a 19. Okay, so with the larger total, in this case, of 27 to hit, you let loose another arrow in the silence. It impacts into the side of this creature, but then it shrieks and hisses with these 2 tongues that immediately emerge, and we are going to enter initiative. As these creatures emerge, the thorny bursting out from the bush that it was hiding in, it immediately attacks you as the person just firing the arrow. So, Thorny lunges forth, gets a 16 to hit, which is your armor class. That does hit you. From this, you take 8 points of damage as the Thorny's sharp teeth sink into your leg, piercing through areas of your armor. Roga's turn. Roga immediately strikes back with the quarterstaff. Unfortunately gets a natural 1 and completely misses. The staff comes down, hits a log that's stray on the ground, then bounces back up, slams Roga back in the head, and Roga is momentarily disorientated. We are now at your turn, chat. So what would you like to do? Okay, so choosing to attack with your sword, I'm gonna need an attack roll from you, chat. So exclamation mark dice to enter to do our first attack roll. As you draw a sword from your side, unsheathing it and attempting to bring it down on this creature as it is currently gnawing away at your boots. Avenger, please hit us with the roll, please. Attacking with your sword. Okay, so you very quickly pull the sword from its sheath, and then instead of going for a wider slash, instinctively stab downwards towards the creature. It sinks into somewhere between the shoulder blades, doesn't go quite as far in as you anticipate, but you hear as the creature screeches and hisses, now backing off from you very slightly. This warning slice or stab, very clearly warding off the creature momentarily. 8 slashing damage dealt to the Thorny. On your turn, as a bonus action, because we are now a Beast Mastery Ranger, you can command Owlden to do something. Owlden is your owlbear cub companion. If you do not command him as a bonus action on your turn, he essentially just tries to avoid taking damage. So what would you like Owlden to do? As the Thorny, a larger creature than Owlden at this point in time, is sort of towering over Owlden, seemingly not paying Owlden too much attention. This may be an opportunity to strike against an opponent that is kind of dismissing Owlden as not an immediate threat. Okay, so choosing to attack. Avenger again. Avenger, hit us with a roll for Owlden, please. 9. Okay, so 9 plus 5, 14. That is exactly the number that you needed to roll in order to land the attack, so congratulations. Owlden does another 8 points of slashing damage as both claws raised, rearing up, scrapes down the side of this creature, ripping flesh and vine from it, and puffs of spores just involuntarily spilling forth from the wounds. Owlden backs off ever so slightly, looks to you, and if an owl bear could smile, expecting praise, that is the sight that you see. Wide-eyed and seemingly grinning, beak agape, Owlden is the embodiment of wide peepo happy. That brings us then to Trenk. Trenk moves around the side here and is going to make an attack, attempting to finish off the creature. Rolls a natural 1. Oh, the NPCs are having a rough time today. So as Trenk runs, Trenk unfortunately trips, a bit more concerned with the well-being of your group than his own nimbleness, and just kind of trips and slams into a tree. Trenk ever had a good roll? Maybe like once or twice. That brings us then to another creature that has been waiting in the shadows. It is going to, first of all, is going to attempt to make a slingshot attack against... Yeah, it's going to be against you because Owlden is a little bit more out of sight. You're the most immediate target. Okay, that is a hit against you. So that is 4 points of bludgeoning damage as a rock slams into the side of your head. Not enough to do fatal damage, but enough to frustrate you all the same. Bring you to 13 out of 25 hit points. That then brings us back to the Thorny. You watch as some of the wounds suffered by this Thorny begin to stitch together as root and vine meld and pull the wounds taut. You are noticing at this point in time that many of the blows that you've dealt are still healing up. Every time this creature makes a move to try and change the circumstances on its turn, some of the damage it's taken seems to heal up. You're not entirely sure why or what you may be able to do to stop this, but unfortunately with your companions not doing such a great job at attacking this creature, it seems as though some of your hard work is being negated. That then brings us to your turn, chat. What would you like to do? You do have supplies like torches and things like that if fire is something you want to try. I've seen that come up a couple of times in the chat. Give sandwich. It's not the first time that's come up today, Papa Crimes. So, knowing full well that the fire itself may not do a huge amount of damage to the creature, coming to the educated guess that it may at the very least keep the regeneration at bay, you attack with a torch, pulling a tinderbox from your belt and then lighting the torch itself, pulling it from over your back. In one motion, you light and then swing down at this creature as the torch ignites. Attack roll, please, chat. Go, Turk. Hit us with the roll. Let's see what you got. Okay, so with a grand total of lots, an 18 attacking with your strength, you slam down onto the creature. And there is a moment in which you fear. You're like, oh shit. there was a storm last night. What if it doesn't do anything? But it seems as though this creature itself seems to be extremely flammable. Some of the moisture being purged, possibly through movement throughout the forest or being more exposed to the elements than some of the undergrowth is, as you do a point of fire damage, and a small amount of fire cascades across its back. So casting Hunter's Mark on the target, you feel this magical energy releasing from your body and tethering itself to this creature. You feel this connection, and with that comes an awareness of its weakest spots to strike. Trank is frustrated and weary, and is going to attempt to attack anyway, seeing you slam down with the torch and realizing that something important is happening. Manages to hit, my man. Okay, so stabbing out with the spear, Trank does 5 points of piercing damage, which seems to do less than you expect to the creature, seemingly having a small amount of resistance to attacks that pierce through its skin. Unlike your sword doing slashing damage, the spear does not seem to do as much as Trank hopes. That then brings us to the Veggie Pygmy, who rotates around to get a better look at the battlefield, is going to make another attack against you with the sling. So, rolling a 2, does not hit you. So another one of these rocks flies through the air, and this time you hear it just in time to dodge out of the way, and it goes quite wide and slams into one of the tree trunks behind you. Bring us then to the Thorny's turn, which does not regenerate. So this fire courses over its body, and it is trying to shake off the fire as best as it can, letting loose sections of vine and puffs of smoke. Does not seem to be able to stitch any of its wounds back together. Does try to make an attack against Owlden, as it is the closest target, with disadvantage because Owlden has taken the dodge action. Okay, so with disadvantage, does not hit, as Owlden nimbly leaps out of the way of the attack as it slams into the ground. This creature attempting to gnaw away at a tree branch that is stray in the area instead of Owlden. Which brings us to the top of the round with Roga. Roga attacks. Bonk. Hits, dealing another 5 damage. This Thorny now is wavering back and forth, stumbling, dazed, confused, the fire still burning across its back, and very clearly on its last legs. Which brings us to your turn, chat. What would you like to do? You have Hunter's Mark on the target, so you will do more damage on your turn if you choose to attack. Okay, so choosing to attack with your sword, I'm going to need an attack roll from chat to see what the outcome is. Door-to-door salesman again, please hit us with the roll. Okay, so with a total of 18, a clear blow against the creature, you slash out as it kind of rears back, cowering away from you, and you slice up across its belly, and you watch as just vine and sacks of spores spill out onto the ground in front of you, burst, and then the creature collapses onto the ground, and the fire starts burning out everything else away, simmering down as the body is reduced to ash, and the remains then make contact with the damper ground around. One creature that you're aware now still on the field. You can command Owlden to attack, or you can move Hunter's Mark. Up to you. So perfect, move Mark. This connection quickly fading from the creature that you've just slain, you then reach out with your free hand and you move it over to the Veggie Pygmy that's currently perched up on a series of branches, little distance away. That would then bring us to Alden, who again is going to move, clawing away at the trunk of the tree, snarling upwards, a viciousness that you have not seen from Alden so far, this more primal, aggressive nature revealed. Trank does not really have a way to attack this creature where it currently stands, but is just kind of poking up towards the branches, not quite able to land any kind of attack at this distance. So that then brings us to the Veggie Pygmy. The Veggie Pygmy is going to shoot down at Trank who's stabbing up at him, actually hits, dealing 4 points of damage to Trink. Roga, who moves over the tree and starts doing the same. You now have these 3 individuals desperately trying to upset this Veggie-pygmy, unseating it from the branches, but not really having too much luck. I think Roga is going to attempt to throw his staff, and it smacks into the Veggie-pygmy, almost knocking them free of the branch. It is improvised though, so it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it does something. Roga then moves over with the remaining movement to pick up the staff on the other side of the tree here, and just chuckles, bringing us to your turn, chat. You have moved your hunter's mark over here. The target is well within range of a bow attack if that's what you would like to do. But for clarity, what would you like to do? So choosing to attack with the bow then, give me that attack roll, chat. Your group having done a fairly good job at neutralizing the targets, though it has not been a battle that has been won without resources expended. Okay, Christian with the total of +8, I believe. So a dirty 20 with the +1 longbow. Your shot is true as it soars through the branches of the nearest tree, upwards between the gaps, strikes straight into the Veggie-pygmy's head, and it just drops silently from the tree, slamming into the ground with a crash and the crack of undergrowth, and we are out of initiative. Going over the bodies, you don't find anything terribly interesting. You do collect 2 slingshots. Yep, so I'll say with that, you hand the slingshots to your 2 traveling companions, not giving one to Alden for various reasons. One, owlbears don't have a sense of how to use mechanisms, and also they don't really have thumbs, so it might prove a little bit difficult. Thumbs are useful for a lot of things. Would you like to stay and rest? Or would you like to continue on? For clarity, rest takes time. It takes an hour. There may be circumstances in which resting may consume a valuable resource in of itself if something is time sensitive. However, rushing into battle won't do you any good if you end up perishing because of it, or somebody else does. Looking around, it doesn't seem as though there's any kind of nest nearby or any kind of hideout. Taking a quick look around, a little bit of a scout around the surrounding area, it seems like this was a fairly isolated scouting party that was waiting for any intruders upon the forest. Okay, so you choose to take an hour to rest. You will find comfortable spots, yourself finding a perch up in the treetop to keep an eye on the surroundings, listening out keenly for anything approaching. So everyone in your party with these resources expended is now back to full HP. So your rest completed, the hour passes without any kind of significant event, and you all prepare to continue on